Hello everyone, we're going to talk about the two readings we assigned this week. This topic for this week is communication technology and history. The first article we read is from the book called Imagine a Community. It's a concept developed by Benedict Anderson. In this book, he argued that the creation of imagined communities became possible because of print capitalism. Capitalist entrepreneurs printed their books and media in everyday language instead of script language like Latin in order to maximize the circulation to make more money. And as a result, readers speaking different local dialects became able to understand each other by reading books and magazines and newspapers, and thus a common discourse has emerged. According to his theory about nationalism, the main cause of nationalism are the declining importance of the privileged access to particular script language because the mass production of books and other print medias in general. Of course, this argument is not outdated just because our communication technology has evolved so much in the last few decades. The core argument still applies to today's media environment because it has become a common experience that we barely think about it, that how media can create imagined communities through usually targeting a mass audience or generalizing and addressing citizens as the public. And another way that media can create imagined communities is through the use of images. The media can perpetuate stereotypes through certain images. And showing those images, the audience will choose which image they relate to the most and furthering the relationship to that imagined community. I'm sure you can all think of a few examples of how media can create imagined communities through the use of image. I will give you an example here. I'm a nerd. I like to read books because I use the app called Goodread. I can rate all the books I want to read and read all the books I have read before, and also check all my friends' book list. So we have a little community that we share good books all the time. I feel like I get closer to my friends even though they may live across the country and we haven't had a face-to-face conversation in years, but I feel like the community is real to me. So I think that's a positive example of how media can create an imagined community. So while you are reading this argument, I want you to think that how the new communication technology has changed your life or created an imagined community for you, and whether it made it easier for people to imagine a community or harder. The reason I also mentioned that new communication technology can make it harder for imagined community is because with so many media platforms available, we can pick the niche we like. We don't have to follow mass media anymore. We don't have to watch the same TV show. We don't have to read the same newspaper online. We don't have to have a common place to talk about politics. We can pick and choose who we want to talk to and what we want to read. So for example, I may have a friend that we grew up together, but we use internet so much, I only subscribe to books, political news, and maybe some cooking shows. And instead, she likes fashion and she follows celebrities online, and she talked to all her friends about reality TV shows. So you see, even though we were friends for a long time and we grew up together, but because we rely on the internet so much and we have our own media diet, it's very hard for me to imagine that we belong to the same community anymore. So you can see new technology doesn't necessarily always bring people together. It can also create barriers. Like this image is showing you, if cat people only talk to cat people online and dog person only talk to dog person online, even if they sit next to each other, they may belong to completely different imagined communities. So my question for you, and I hope you can discuss this in your writing exercise as well, how do you use technology to find your community? And do you have experience like I had, sometimes you feel like it's harder to communicate with your friend because you're so attached to your own communities online. The next article we are going to read, if you already read it, the next article we read this week, it's about the powerful television images. It covered the debate that's very famous between Kennedy and Nixon. It's actually the first televised presidential debate in American history. And the key argument here is people disagree who won the debate, because Kennedy presented a better image on TV. He was a young man, he looked comfortable with public speaking, he looked confident. But if you only listen to the debate on the radio, you may perceive Nixon as the winner because he presented a better argument. The reason there is a difference, people believe, is because when we're watching TV, we have all the nonverbal cues. We know what the candidate look like. The nonverbal cues, the image itself, attract most of our attention. So we actually pay less attention about the words used in the debate, the logic of the argument. But when you're listening to a presidential debate on radio, you pay very close attention to the words and to the argument itself, because you don't have the nonverbal cues, the image, to distract you. So that's why people had a different conclusion after they processed the same argument from different media. The reason this debate between Kennedy and Nixon became so well known is because it started a new era where public image and public speaking skills in front of TV became very critical in presidential election or in elections in general. The television image has never been as powerful before this debate, and now people all realize the power of image, and it certainly changed how campaign was run. So the question I want to start with is, some people intake information better through certain types of media. Let's say younger generation like to watch video that's shorter, like to watch shows on demand. You have less patience with advertisement. But the older generation, they enjoy the passive viewing of TV shows. They are okay with long advertisement gap between each episode, or even in the middle of the episode. So do you think that will affect how you process information and how you access knowledge? And will that create a generational gap as well? So that's the first thing I want you to think about. If you want to elaborate your opinion in the writing exercise this week, I certainly encourage you to do that. I think it's a very interesting topic. And honest, do you think television image is that powerful? And the other thing I do want to talk about here is that don't just think about the different types of media, like how certain type of media present you verbal cues. Some types of media only present you with the image. Some types of media have long written article, like the newspaper or newspaper online or blogs. I also want you to think about that. What happens when your parents watch the presidential debate from the beginning to the end on TV? But you don't have the time. So after work or after class, you just watched a summary by some famous TV host or online influencer within 3 minutes. Even though you and your parents, all of you, know what happened in the debate, but they processed the entire debate on their own. You only learned the gist of it. Do you think that will affect how you perceive the winner and the loser of each debate, and how much you will like or dislike certain candidate, and how your opinion will be affected by whoever summarized the debate, and how your parents' opinion will be affected by how the two candidates behaved during the debate? I have a small illustration here for you. So if you watch the presidential debate from the beginning to the end, I'm not sure how much you will notice how the two candidates' body language changed so much. But if you read news articles afterwards, you will see a lot of news agency put all those screenshots together to give you a stronger contrast between these two candidates, how they moved and how their position changed on stage. When we are processing information in the natural setting from the beginning to the end when time is linear for us, we don't necessarily see those contrasts. But when you put all the screenshots together, use layovers, you can see the contrast very clearly. Do you think the reason that voters are so polarized about President Trump and then candidate Hillary Clinton is because the new media technology allow us to create stronger contrast like this? And do you think television image and how we put those images together will affect how we evaluate our political figures or role models today? I certainly think it's going to be even harder to win the hearts of voters in the future compared to how campaign was run in the past, because there's so many different angles you can cover a presidential campaign. If you're only talking on the radio, there are 13 skills you need to have. You need to talk slowly. You need to have some smart sentences there. But when you're presenting yourself on TV, you need to pay attention to your hair, your makeup, your dress, where your hands are, where you are standing, how you are sitting down, who shake the hand first. And now with all those new softwares, like the picture I'm showing you right now, they can even see the whole debate in a few minutes because you can fast forward, you can lay over, and there are even more things you have to pay attention to when you're running a campaign now. So tell me, what do you think? And I can't wait to see your thoughts. I want to end this lecture with two quotes. One is from Mr. Gibson. The future is already here, it's just not very evenly distributed. Those two articles that you are required to read this week are not about modern day campaigns, are not about something that happened yesterday. Those two articles are about things that happened at least a decade ago. But you can see those arguments still apply today. So when we're thinking about future technology, it doesn't have to be some fancy AI or crazy robot that hasn't been invented yet. When you look back in the history, you can actually find hints for the future. And a lot of the arguments about how technology affects society still apply today. They just maybe not apply 100%. And some old arguments that were criticized by other scholars may start to show some insights about the future. So don't ignore history when we're thinking about future technology. We want to learn from the past also because the second quote, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. That's all I have today. I hope you have a good week and enjoy the readings. And tell me what you think. See you next week.